Hi, I'm Wayne,
And I'm Hazel.
and here we are again, episode 7 of the Just Covered podcast, where we talk to advisors about their views and opinions in the intermediary space.
And today we're joined by Neil Bohan, who is the principal and an advisor at Personal Touch Kent. So, welcome, Neil. Thank you for
Hi.
joining.
Hi.
And not only that, but one of our Hero in the Middle award winners. So, tell us a bit about that, Neil.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise actually, but we're very proud of the award, which involved Kelly, who's still working with us, and a claim that unfortunately she had to make. But yeah, she's very well, and looking forward to seeing this podcast as well.
Yeah, I said when you came in this morning, I think we all knew who you were and who Kelly was. We all remember that story, and it's lovely to hear that she's doing well now. For any advisors who have seen that claim video, or have been to our training and have watched it, it's great to see not only is she doing well, but then you've also now got an advocate in the business for
Yeah,
protection, don't you?
I said to Neil
absolutely.
earlier on as well today, everyone must know him in London now and around the country. He must be getting high fives the amount of times we played that video to advisors.
Don't know about that, but yeah, it was very important, and something like that is that just to highlight the difference that we can make in terms of and how important protection is in terms of people's maintaining people's lives and covering debts, liabilities, everything. So it's very important what we do.
Yeah, I agree. And how do you ensure that you're doing that and ensuring the importance of that every time in every sales process, every customer that you speak to and your colleagues speak to?
Well, we'll always work to a system. I mean, I'm primarily a mortgage broker, but I like to say I'm a mortgage and protection broker because I think the two things do go hand in hand. And I think as well is that it's also important from our point of view is that it that we discuss with clients that it's not just about covering debt, covering mortgage debt. It's also making sure that we're providing advice to cover their family as well. After all, we're really looking at the two most important things in our lives. That's our family and keeping a roof over our family's head. And that's what we got to do.
As an experienced advisor, the Kelly situation, obviously, with that, you helped her, you were there proactively having the conversation with her with regards to when potentially she was looking at cancelling, all that type of thing. And the stories that you've got to tell on the back of that, with other advisors coming into the industry that haven't had the benefit of going through that, what sort of advice could you give them?
Well, the thing we need to do is to gauge it so the protection is affordable. That's primarily the issue. It also needs to make a difference because if it doesn't make a difference insofar as we don't get the coverage right, then what's the point in doing it? So we've got to be mindful of those two things, and it's always a compromise. Okay, so it's a compromise between the amount of cover that you have and ultimately what you're paying in the premium. And if we get that right, the business should stick. And yeah, and our clients will then be protected.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit about your business. What's the makeup of your business then, Neil?
Well, we've got two. We're very much a family affair. We've got two advisors. That's me and my son Lewis Thomas. Then we've got Saffron, who runs the mortgage desk. She's in charge. She's my wife. And we've got Kelly, who deals with the mortgage administration side of things.
Lynn?
And in terms of the kind of conversations, then you said that it's getting that compromise right and making sure that it's going to stick for that client. So I'm hearing here it's a lot of it's been making it personal, and kind of adapting it to that person sat in front of you. So where do you bring that into the conversations that you have, and who is it that brings that in? Is it yourself right at the start, or is it admin team? How does that work?
It starts from the very start of the appointment. Um, our first thing. So whether we're doing a protection only appointment or a mortgage or both. It starts from the fact finding. And it's a really easy. What we need to do is get permission from our clients that it's okay to talk about everything financial, and so ask them. And all I do is I'll run through. I'll tell them that we're going through a financial questionnaire. I'll then say to them that there may be things that you're doing now financially that you could be doing better, and there may be things that you're not doing at all that maybe you should be doing. And if it's all right with you, can I mention it? And inevitably they'll say yes. So of course now we've got permission that we can talk about anything.
What
So
a lovely way to be.
Yeah, we train
Introduction of that. Yeah.
That's my favourite technique to get. It's called confirmation bias. That's what we
I don't know what it's
badge it
called.
up as. Yeah, it's
do it.
confirmation bias, and that's one of the sales techniques that we train advisors in, because it is absolutely that behavioural science. If you're asking for that permission up front, not only are you subliminally getting them to buy into what you're saying and say, yes, I'm going to go along on this journey, but then you also get the perfect opportunity if they then turn around and say, oh no, I don't want to answer that. Well, actually, right at the start of the conversation, you agreed with me we were going to do this today. What's changed? Do you ever find that you use it in that way, or how's it?
Never had any bother with it at all,
Yeah.
because I think that people will appreciate that, that they've got essentially a free financial health check.
Yeah.
Which is part of that, and then at the back, we'll then break down the appointment. So if it's a mortgage appointment, we'll break that. We'll deal with the mortgage first, and then we'll say, well, we'll have another meeting to discuss any of those other items that we've mentioned, if it's of interest to you.
It's interesting. I think it's often not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's in the way you delivered that then, which is obviously the way you do it with your clients. Who's going to say no to that?
That's right. I mean, well, I'll probably get some no's now, but but no, I've most people are very, very pleased. I must say that sometimes I do forget, and I might have to introduce that halfway through, but still so it doesn't matter where you put it in, but ideally at the start. But if you do forget, bring it in as soon as you can, and I think the outcome will be a positive one.
It creates a big sense of trust, doesn't it? That actually, I'll not only do what you're asking me to do, but I'm going to also identify any issues that might harm you in the future. It's that trust building, and it gives them a really good sense of they're getting a really, really robust service, isn't it?
And as well, most people just cover debt. That's generally what they'll do. They don't know what levels of cover they perhaps should have, and they forget about their families. Often I'll highlight that from a point of view as I'll offer them a job, okay, but rather than pay them a salary, I'll pay their mortgage. And if they've only got mortgage protection, what's the difference? If they die, their mortgage is covered. If they wouldn't work for me, if I just pay their monthly mortgage payment, then they're short in terms of cover for their family. So it's an easy thing that they can relate to, I think. So if they won't come and work for me, if I just pay their mortgage, why aren't they? Why wouldn't they do that?
It's a great relatable scenario, isn't it? And the way sort of you're delivering it, I'm feeling as a client, I'd be thinking, Neil's looking out for me here. I'm getting that vibe straight away. So therefore, I'm going to buy into totally what he's saying. The trusting, as you just mentioned. So really, really important. And is that just sort of delving into that a little bit more? Is that something you've developed over time? Did you have an experienced advisor who was a mentor of yours when you were younger? How has that come about?
Well, I don't think any technique is I have the monopoly on that or have thought of it. I think we regurgitate these things and we deliver them in a way that we're comfortable with as brokers as well. So I don't think it's anything new, but I've developed my own way, and it might work for some of the guys that will be watching this. Let's hope it does.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
Because that's saying over time, you do find the things that work and don't work. And it's not true to yourself. You can try someone else's technique. It doesn't always work, but that technique said in a different way or said exactly as it is probably will work for many listeners. Going back to that service, obviously you spoke about there that actually you're going to offer them, not just advice on the mortgage, but look at their finances as a whole. How do you then carry on that relationship with that client? So that once you've done the mortgage, got everything sorted, do you maintain a relationship with them, or how does that part of your business work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that we do maintain that relationship. So we'll generally pick up on remortgages, product transfers, but also it's very important that our clients are reminded about what they've bought. So if they've bought a policy 2 years ago, 3 years ago, why should they remember what it is? So it's also to reaffirm when you go back, can you remember this is what we did, this is why we did it, and so on. And then we can just refresh their memories, which of course will also help with retention as well.
You're taking on that responsibility to remind the client of that, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's important for them to do it when they did it. So it should still be important for them, when you go to see them next.
So we get some advisors saying, well, I'm a bit nervous to do that in case reminding them of that cover reminds them to cancel it or makes them think, oh, I forgot I had that direct debit coming out. I'll go and go and wipe that one off. What would you say in response to that?
Well, again, I think it's the way that you deliver
Mhm.
that. So you need to make it personal for them. Do you remember the reason why we did this? We did this to protect your family. You remember that we had a conversation that it's not just about clearing the debt, it's to make sure that we've got some additional income so the bills can be paid. And all the things that you want for your family now, they can still have even if you're not about. Do you remember that? Yes. Okay, so then hopefully then you're not going to get that particular issue. And the other issue is that sometimes it'll be better that
Yeah.
early, so that's then something that you can deal with at the time before they take action and cancel any direct debits or anything.
And you mentioned product transfers as well, and that's something also that we talked to a lot of advisors about. And some advisors may have a belief that it's more difficult to offer or sell protection to customers or get them to want to purchase it on the back of a product transfer. How do you find that?
No, it's the same principle. All along, each of our clients would have perhaps spoken to another broker before. So why do we sell if we're doing a home mover mortgage? They would have seen someone before. So it's still the same. So you go back and ask for permission to review things. Their circumstances may have changed. Okay, they would have perhaps had a promotion, lost some death in service benefits, become self-employed, or gone to a limited company. So there's potentially different products there that will benefit the client that maybe they haven't, taken out. And again, if affordability has changed, then then they can add to their, to their protection, and that's the way that I believe it should be done. Because we shouldn't just be setting up an insurance that will that will be the same forever. It won't be. You've got they'll have children, perhaps they'll move, they'll perhaps retire, so their needs will change as well. But by asking for permission, that gives you the option to then bring that into the conversation as well.
Well, that was in your video, and I very distinctly remember about giving the clients the option to turn you down was the wording I think you used,
Yeah,
particularly in that video. And very, very powerful, a very, very strong message, because like you say, you provide that professional guided sort of advice and like you say, looking out for them, steer, whatever you want to call it, you're there for them. So with regards to that, on the back of a product transfer, you're just saying it's exactly the same. You're treating it exactly the same way as you would with any other client.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be any different. And it's not for us. Sometimes we can make a judgment.
Yeah.
We can say, oh, well, they won't want any of this. Okay, give them the opportunity to turn you down. Explain to them the reasons why they should perhaps do things, so they understand. They need to understand, what cover levels they should have and why. Okay, you need to check that they understand, and then at the end of the day, offer them to a decision. Ask them to make a decision on it, and you never know.
You don't, and you're so right. It is giving them the option, because the one time that really resonated with me when I was advising is I remember doing a quote for a pilot. He was like an RAF fighter pilot, like wanting protection. Well, I didn't know if he wanted protection or not, but I remember doing the mortgage and I thought in my head, there's absolutely no chance. Like when I did the protection quote, it was hundreds of pounds a month by the time I'd sourced it, got it all through. And I can remember sitting there before the appointment and in my own mind was thinking, he's not going to take this. That's like pretty much half his mortgage payment again. But I still brought it up in conversation. And he turned around and went, absolutely, I need that. And can you imagine if I just thought, I'm going to shy away from that today. He's probably not going to. I'll save myself the 10 minutes of, get the time back. And actually, he was absolutely like, I can see why I would need that. I'm going to take it straight away. No challenge or anything. And you just think, as an advisor, you have so many preconceived beliefs and ideas sometimes. It is so important just to try and almost ignore them and just, as you said, treat every single client in front of you with that respect of you deserve the right advice now, regardless of my
It's interesting,
perception.
isn't it? Because it's an opinion-based world we live in, particularly in financial advice, don't we? Where you're giving your opinion, you're giving your advice based on the customer need, and then in that scenario where you're perceiving, oh, this seems a bit expensive, you've got to sort of almost consciously throw that out, haven't you?
Yeah,
and stop it to
absolutely.
the client, because why should you necessarily judge? There could have been something that happened to them. They might have known someone that's had a critical illness or whatever it might be, and that might be the most important thing they want to do as part of that sales process.
Yeah, I did have a client that it was a fairly hefty premium, and unfortunately they have claimed on it, okay, through a critical illness claim. And when I went out to see them to discuss the critical illness claim and their options moving forward, they were slightly short on the cover levels to cover the whole mortgage, and he questioned me about it. And at the time, I said, "Well, you didn't want to pay the premium, the additional premium," and his wife backed me up. He was then quiet, and then the appointment then moved on. But not uncomfortable, not unhappy with it. But he then actually realised that it was him that was that decided. But they've got they're very comfortable now, fortunately, as a result of the payment of the policy.
And that's the thing, you almost want to, we had an advisor in a while ago who did a podcast, I think it was our episode 2 or 3, and he said you almost want to say to that customer, you should feel slightly uncomfortable how much you're paying for it, because that means if anything happens, you have got like exactly the maximum amount you could have ever been able to afford. So it's interesting that I think when you're in that situation of having to claim, you're always going to think, oh, I wish I'd just paid that extra fiver or tenner to have that additional amount, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm interested, you personally went to visit them. So do you do that as part of, if any of your clients claim, do you make that, again, another service that you offer is guiding them through the claims process?
Yeah, what we found is that some clients will just go direct, and we don't find out that there is a claim until we hear from the insurance company, and some will contact us, and then we'll then deal with that particular issue in a way that the way that they want it dealt with. So we'll either get involved at the start, or and just guide them through the process. So it's really down to them, but ultimately they have to know that you're there, and if I hear from the insurance company, we'll always phone them up. Okay, and just, is everything okay? Do you need any help? And it's a very important part of what we do, I think.
Well, that's in a policy's only worth it at claim stage, isn't it? So you want that stage to be as good as possible for that client from all angles. And I always found that as well when I was advising. If someone went straight direct to the insurer, you always thought, well, I could have given you more advice on your mortgage, or I could have said to you, here's how you can approach the lender to get a bit of breathing space in those payments. And I think that's where financial advice comes into its own in terms of the value of what you do and how you
Yeah, I
do
think
it.
there's never a time that goes by that you wish that, that they should have had some more.
Mhm.
Okay, but you can't, because they've done whatever they can afford to do, and you've agreed upon it. But if we could put another note on the benefit,
Yeah.
then that would always make them a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. And in terms of the retention side, so you mentioned that, product transfer and, you're regularly keeping in touch with these clients. What happens if they cancel in the middle of, say, their fixed term product? What if you get a lapse notification? How do you manage that?
Well, what we mean by product transfer is the
Yeah.
mortgage side of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Okay, but certainly if there is a cancellation of the plan, then we rely on the provider to let us know. Okay, and if that's then the case, we'll then contact the client. Okay, and after we've contacted the provider to see what the situation is, how far they're behind, what do they want us to do to reinstate? Do we need a declaration of health? Do we need just a new direct debit? So once we've got that information, we'll then go back to the client and then establish why they've cancelled. It could be all number of reasons: change of circumstances, redundancy, all manner of things. So we try and establish why, and then look at the parameters. They may have just forgotten what they were paying for. We've had that before, and and then it's again just reminding them, going back, remind them why they did it, and so on, and see whether you can save it.
Yeah. And do you touch base with them by email or call, or how does that initial conversation happen when you get that?
It's well, I believe that it's we're in the industry of relationship building, so we should be speaking to our clients.
Mhm.
Okay, and then of course, there's email and lots of different clever ways, but there's no substitute for a conversation. I believe maybe
Tell
it's
us,
just old school.
Mm.
tell us about those sort of the relationships you've got with the clients. You've obviously got some really strong ones. Probably build up real personal relationships, maybe. Is there anything in particular that you think is really important in doing that? You would give to an aspiring advisor that's new into the industry?
I think that's a good question. I think that you need to be serious and believe in what you do. That's the first thing, and I think that will come through your pores whenever you're speaking to someone. And I think that if they believe that you genuinely care, okay, then I think that you'll create some loyalty. What you can do is make your clients a promise to command some sort of loyalty. And what you can say to them is that I'll promise to look after you over the years that lie ahead. And if there's anything financial that you want to know about, please give me a call. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find it out for you. But in return for that, I want you to make me a promise as well, is that you're going to be approached by lots of different brokers throughout your life, financial guys. And it's only if I stick to my promise, all I want you to do is just to say to them, well, what do you want to talk to me about financially? Okay. And then once they've told you why they're phoning you or contacting you, you then say to them, well, come back to me. And if it's something that I believe that you'll be interested in, after all, I've been looking after you for this period of time, then I'll come back and recommend it to you. And that generally works well as well. That does help with customer loyalty.
Bet that's massive because we see, the FCA released some stats a couple of years ago now, but we do quote it sometimes that I think it was like 60% of customers will go direct to lender. And when you think about the communications that they're constantly getting from lenders, they'll be promoting credit cards, loans, all their other services. I guess by finishing your appointment in that way, it is making that customer feel really secure that I'm going to go back to Neil. I'm not going to go back to that lender. I'm not going to go, when it comes to their mortgage, I'm not going to go back to do my product transfer there because Neil's promised me he's going to do the best for me, and I've said I'll buy into that. And that's so strong. I've not ever heard that before as a way of closing an appointment.
The key to it is you need to keep your promise.
Yeah.
That's it, because otherwise that'll be the end of that relationship.
You're so right, because you're fronting up the fact that they're going to be contacted. Of course they are. They may not realise that at the time. And then on the back of that, it's helping for you to remain top of their mind. So you'll Neil, the financial guy. That's where I'll go if I need anything.
Yeah.
As part of the agreement that we've made at the end of that appointment. I haven't heard it before either. I think that's absolutely very, very powerful.
I'd like to take the credit, but it's not mine.
Was it another broker, or was it old industry? Do you remember?
I think there was a guy called Alan Pease. I think it might have been him, an Australian broker from years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was him. I might be wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting that we were chatting about it before we started filming, that peer-to-peer coaching, isn't it? And how throughout your career you do pick little things up from other people, and that's why we wanted to start doing this, was just giving that opportunity to advisors to hear from people that have done it really well. And I said, we've been in the industry a long time, but that's still new. That, like, I'll take that away now and think, right, that's a really good learning, a really good bit of information to share with others.
Yeah, I think if you could take one thing from these podcasts that we do, and as we've spoken about before, you do it in your own way. You'll implement it into your own way of working. If someone does just the one thing, then it's been successful.
Yeah, I think so, and deliver it in a way that deliver it in a way that you believe is the way that your clients will want to hear it. So we won't deliver it in the same way all of the time to everybody.
And does your son have success using these techniques as well? I'm just conscious, obviously, I take it, did he start his career with you and have built up his own experience, or how does that work?
Well, Lewis started as a power planner, and then moved on to advising, over the phone. And after he'd been in the industry for sort of 5 or 6 years, then came over. And I think he uses these things. I like to think he does, but they've certainly I've certainly shared them with him.
Yeah,
and maybe if he watches this podcast,
he'll tell us otherwise
as well.
Yeah, I'll do all of it, we say. It's interesting because it's just helping customers to see the need, isn't it? Helping them to make the decisions about things that are the most important to them. But you're delivering it and you're doing it in such a way that you're via building those close relationships and in an interpersonal sort of fashion, if you like, keeping in contact with them, walking the walk, like you say, doing what you said you're going to do, because obviously that knocks it all down if you don't. It is just so important. I'm keen to know a little bit more around the claim side, because obviously you've been involved in that a lot. When you're talking to clients and stuff, do you paint pictures? Do you tell them stories of claims, or is that something that you don't really need to do because other things just seem to work for you?
Our job is to help our clients recognize that they've got a problem that they didn't know they had before we spoke to them. And so they need to tell you that they've got a problem. And so how we do that is just ask them, just say, well, look, what would be the financial consequences for you if your husband died, if your wife died, if you couldn't work for a year through an accident, if you had a critical illness, if you had a heart attack, do you want to go back to the job that gave you the heart attack? What's the financial consequences for you? And then be quiet and let them tell you. That's it.
Do you want to go back to the job that gave you the heart attack? That is absolutely strong, powerful, personal, straight to the point. Makes people think, doesn't it?
It does. And the other thing is as well is that I would normally precursor that. So I don't want to be giving all away my sales secrets really, but ask your customers, do they know anyone that suffered from cancer or had a heart attack? Ask them. 9 out of 10 people will say that they know someone, and we all do. It's a major source of claim. It's your most common claims for insurance companies. And give them the background. Give them background on how many people suffer, what the average age is. Okay, and ask them whether they know of anybody themselves. That brings it home to them, and that's what I do.
So it's not only using the claim stats, but it's then getting it brought to life for them personally. That it's no use just saying, oh, 1 in 2 people get cancer. It's then, well, what do you think of that? And then,
yeah, you've got to get them to tell you. They need to think about it. Once they're thinking, if I can fire statistics out, and they really don't necessarily mean a great deal to any of us, at the time. But if I ask you, do you know anybody? Then they'll think about those people, and think about the implications, and hopefully then put themselves in that situation. Now, we used to call it in the old days disturbing, okay? And so we need to disturb those people, because the likelihood is they would have a problem if it occurred. Now, whether they want to do anything about it or not is entirely up to them, and could be down to budget and so on. But we need to, offer that solution. We need to offer a solution for them.
You're offering choices, aren't you? You're making them aware, relating it personally. They've seen it, been through it, know people that have been through it, and then you're offering those choices, and then leading to a solution depending on which of one of those choices they've made.
Well, you should be the hero, shouldn't you? You're
Exactly.
you're there with the solution, and hopefully, and you can design that solution for them in a way that is going to make a difference should anything happen.
and as
We
we've
do an
seen it,
important job.
and it absolutely does, as Kelly is, as you've shown with Kelly's
Yep.
story as well, and we see it every day,
Yeah.
with the claims that we pay out as a provider. It's scary to think how many people maybe are suffering that haven't had that advice, or haven't had the luxury of, being able to speak to a quality advisor who's educated them on these things effectively. If you had one bit of advice, Neil, to give to another advisor in the industry, if you could only pick one, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really difficult one, but I think don't recommend anything that you wouldn't be comfortable doing yourself, or if you haven't done it yourself. So if you're talking about income protection, make sure you've got a policy for income protection. There is stories as well that some brokers that you see that carry around their policies in their briefcase, and get them out and show the customer, this is something that I've done. This is why you should do it. So I would say that.
Yeah, I always say to advisors, if you don't believe your own sales pitch, why would a customer?
True, so true. Yeah.
But no, that's been really great. That loads of sales techniques there. Like, I've actually learned some new ones myself, which I'll definitely be keeping in my back pocket. So that's been really useful. Thank you.
There is a copyright on them.
Is it? On all my slides now, all my training presentations, Neil Bohan.
Yeah.
I'm definitely sold, Neil.
Yeah, right.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Thank
you.
you.
Cheers.